$1 million question. This is something I've been itching. I couldn't wait till 6 o'clock tonight because I was desperate to talk to you about this. I've got a simple question, ladies and gents. Why does our government keep insisting on gaslighting us? There's been so many examples. I could be here until next week giving you them all. But look, the most recent one occurred last night. Take a listen to this.
When there are babies and children put into that position by human trafficking gangs who are coming across in the channel with skin burns from the oil from those boats mixing with the salt seawater, I would ask any of you to look at those babies and children and say, go back where you came from. And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Right, look, you do not have to be an absolute genius with statistics or mathematics or anything to know that that is absolute nonsense. You just need to have eyesight that works. And I grant you that my eyesight is not perfect, hence my spectacles. But even I can see that when these dinghies, they're not really that small anymore, are rocking up, they are absolutely not filled in the main with women and children and babies. Now, that clip has provoked absolute outrage. Because, in fact, let me start with you, because you are on the Labour side of the fence. This is not true. And then, pressured, Darren Jones, he has now responded. And basically what he's now saying is, of course, the overall majority of people are men, but it's not north of 90%, which is what Reform claimed. He then goes on to say that he was sharing just a story about a visit, about a particular dinghy that did arrive with mostly women and children. And then he says, I'm happy to clarify this, given how this is now being misrepresented. It is not being misrepresented. He wasn't talking about a single individual boat. He was talking about boats plural. And he was making out, and he even said, I know this is a bit controversial to say, and da-da-da-da-da. It's gaslighting. Why are they doing it, Matthew?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Darren Jones. I don't know anything.
Well, he's not here, and I did ask him. I invited him onto the programme. Guess what he did? Ignored me. And Darren Jones, if you're watching, you're very welcome, because you should explain yourself.
I don't like that wording. I don't like how he's put that. I think you should just own up and say you misspoke. You got your figures wrong, right? You know, we can all admit there's an issue. If he wanted to say the majority of videos he has seen personally has been babies and it's awful, there's obviously an element. I think Home Office figures put it about 70% are men, you know, which leaves the rest as whoever. I don't know why he's done that. And I think also in politics, regardless, I get the whole party political thing, but two wrongs don't make a right. Just because Zia Yusuf's statistic may also have been wrong, that doesn't mean you go, well, ignore what I said, he was wrong, so therefore I'm in the right now. It's very silly, and I think you'd be better off being honest with people. But politicians, even way back to the winter fuel allowance, they find it so hard to say sorry. They see it as ceding ground, and this is totally corrosive to our political system, totally.
Matt Goodwin?
Well, the vast majority of illegal migrants who are breaking our laws by entering the country in the small boats are men, under the age of 40, many of them from Islamic nations, and more than a few of them are terrorists, would-be terrorists, criminals, who have often gone on to sexually assault women. And there are lots of cases of people who have arrived in this country illegally on the small boats who have gone on to commit crimes. It is undermining public trust in the system. It is a disservice to the British taxpayers, to the British public. And to see the party of government lying to people, which is what he was doing, he is lying to try and downplay the severity of this crisis. That's why Labour MPs call it irregular migration rather than illegal migration. They want to live in a world where this is considered to be acceptable. The first act of entering a country cannot be to break its laws. That's what's happening. These people are leaving a safe country. And if there are one or two women and babies in these boats, and by the way, what kind of parent would put a baby in a boat crossing the busiest shipping lane in the Western world? You know, I don't know who would do that. And I say that as a parent, leaving a safe country to do that, namely France. It's outrageous. Labour are also gaslighting British people by saying they're bringing the numbers down. Now, the numbers are nearly 50% higher on the same point last year, nearly 80% higher on the same point in 2023. I had a similar experience to Zia Yusuf on Question Time, where Labour Minister Jackie Smith told me only a couple of months ago the numbers were coming down. the numbers are going through the roof. So what they're doing is they're creating this perfect storm of a public that has every right to distrust the Labour government on this issue, that wants their borders to be fixed. And at the same time, these people are coming over. It's a national security problem because, as I say, many of the people who are coming are not, they're not the kinds of people I would argue we want coming into our country. Let's put it that way. And the government has a responsibility to people to be honest and truthful about what's happening. And again, they're downplaying information, they're concealing information because they don't want the British people to see the reality of what's going on. Anything to say back to that? Is that fair, his assessment, or not?
I think the thing I challenge is the illegality of it, because
it's the breaking laws, Matt.
Can I ask you a question?
Go on.
Because you're Labour through and through. I think that's fair to say, born and bred. But you seem quite demoralised. So,
people keep telling me this.
No, but you do.
People wonder why. Yeah, because, we're all over the show. I said on election night on a different channel, my worry was we would not use change. I always thought this would be managed decline. This is what's happening. It's a rough old ride. And I don't try and defend a lot of stuff, right? If you're trying to help Labour, you're defending the indefensible at times. The reason I'd gently challenge illegality is because, essentially, you can call it a loophole. These people are covered by the 51 Convention. Now, the problem with this is, and I agree, there are many people coming to this country that you wouldn't want here. And that's why I think no government has got it right. And I think if you want to process these people properly, and they're not throwing their passports in the channel, you want to know exactly who they are, you have to change the 51 Convention. The whole refugee situation, people fleeing, whatever, is a Europe-wide issue. I think if we don't get together now, call an emergency summit and say we all have a stake to play here because all governments are getting hammered in the polls. But you should be able to process offshore, you should be able to process in UK embassies or pinch points where if you're fleeing Syria, have one in Turkey, so that you're stopping potentially bad people use a loophole of the 51 Convention.
Okay. Look, I'm going to tell you where this is going to end. I agree with almost everything you just said, by the way, which is why I'm wondering whether you're going to be in a different political party by the time of the next general election. But everybody, by the time we get to that election, here's my prediction, this is what will happen in British politics. Because Labour is managing this so badly, and because the British people are so frustrated, and they have every right to be frustrated, they're paying £8 billion, upwards of £8 billion every year on this complete catastrophe on the border, this is what will happen. We will end up with a new government after Labour leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, reforming or repealing the Human Rights Act, overhauling the post-Second World War legal architecture that is being used by activist judges and lawyers to allow foreign criminals and illegal migrants to stay in our country. This is going to be a watershed moment in this country, like Donald Trump returning to the White House has been a watershed moment for American immigration policy. The elite class in Westminster don't see it yet. They don't understand the anger in this country. They don't understand the frustration in this country. And they don't understand the extent to which they are violating the one thing that has always united the British and the English people on these islands, which is a sense of fair play. And that sense of fair play, that if you come here, you play by the rules, if you contribute, and if you work hard, if you pay your tax, and you respect law and order, OK, the British people will always be tolerant of some genuine refugees. But what is happening in this country at the moment is total chaos. And Keir Starmer can't see it because he's an international human rights lawyer and he's obsessed with maintaining all of these international conventions and foreign courts that are not accountable to the British people. He is setting the stage for a wholesale political revolution in this country. That is what is going to happen. Come back, you can show me this clip in 5 years' time, but I guarantee that's what's going to happen in this country. All of these rules are going to be overturned because our own politicians cannot be bothered to provide the basic security and safety that the British people deserve.
It feels just such a strange thing that's happening. That's why I purposely chose the word gaslighting, because we know what is being said is untrue. We can see that. We all can see that. You don't have to be, it doesn't matter what political party you support, you can see that they're misleading people, and it's almost like they're trying to position an alternate reality so that they can clamp down and kind of suppress people that can see and that want to critique and that want to criticise the actual genuine reality. I think it's so appalling. Some of you might remember I was covering a show on GB News a few weeks ago, and we had Mike Tapp, the Labour MP, and he was putting out posts on Twitter of pictures of newspapers where the Labour Party had paid for advertisements, a wrap they call it. So it was like a wrap that went around the newspaper that was criticising Reform UK. And Mike Tapp, the Labour MP, he was taking pictures of that and saying it's really good to see that the media are catching on basically with how ridiculous Reform UK are. And I kept putting it to him on the show, and I kept saying that's not true. This is a paid-for advert by you. If the media was catching on, you wouldn't need to be paying for these wraps, would you? And he just was having absolutely none of it. It was like we're living in two different parallel universes. It is so bizarre, ladies and gents. What do you make to it?